Welcome to the 10 Talent Life, conversations about stewardship, family, and purpose, where we specifically ask the question what it might look like to stay on the field at a time in life when most people are heading for the sidelines. Nothing today is meant to tell you what to do. It's simply to create some space to think more deeply, to slow down, and to ask the question, what might I want to put in motion for my family while I still can? My name is Irving, and I'm the founder of Irving Financial Group, where we help people ascend this enormous mountain called preparing for retirement. And we have learned that there's so much more to life than just becoming financially independent. And we've come to believe that there's the opportunities that exist at that point in time are so incredibly important. So we've named this podcast the 10 Talent Life, and we've coined the phrase 10 Talent Living as we have considered that more deeply and recognized that this parable from the Bible in Matthew that talks about being faithful with what you've been given to make the most of it instead of being fearful of losing it is so important. So we really want to just examine our lives and talk about and consider together what it might be like if we lived that way. So today, as we get started, I want to introduce a couple people to you. So let me start with my wife, Nicole. So we've been married for 28 years, and she has had the opportunity, I guess we call, to hear me over all these years as I've learned things from families as we've worked with them, and we've learned what's important to them, what they're trying to accomplish in their family, and where we've really been able to see this vision for so much more after retirement. Even that's what most people are working on is actual retirement. So welcome, Nicole.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
And then I have my son, Nicholas. So he's my oldest son, and he's also involved in the business with me. So I asked him to be here. A lot of this conversation is really foundational to multi-generational thinking. So I asked Nick to be here so that he could give us some perspective from there.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's great to have you guys. So let me kind of launch this idea of staying on the field. And so what I've recognized and what we've seen with clients and with our culture is that there's this cultural current to, get going in life. Starts with trying to get by and then trying to build a little something. And then all of a sudden you say, you know what, I could actually maybe someday achieve this point in my life in which I don't have to work to live. Right. And in our culture, we call that retirement. Some people call it work optional lifestyle or financial independence. Doesn't really matter what you call it, but essentially, when could I still survive and take care of my family if I couldn't work or didn't have to work?
Right.
And so that's this enormous mountain of a task. And so we call it the Ascent. How do you get up this mountain? And so there's this cultural shift to just grind and work for that. And for most people, it's a 30, 40-year grind. It's really just takes so long.
Yep.
And it's such a big task. And so what we've come to recognize is that inadvertently, it appears as though this current leads to a pool at the top of the summit that doesn't go anywhere. Right.
Yeah.
So there's almost like you finally get there and then it's, I guess, just coast. And we've seen people who have kind of felt lost in that.
Right.
And as I've looked at it, Nicole and I have looked at it for our own lives, then we've also said, well, what then would we do? And so when we talk about staying on the field, I think that the major shift that came to me is I had always anticipated that we would work and we would grind, we'd raise the family, we would eventually achieve financial independence, and then our role in life would be to move to the sideline and to cheer on the next generation. So we essentially leave the team and become fans.
Right.
And this whole idea of staying on the field is really a shift to say, well, what if we didn't leave the team? Maybe what if we just change position, but we go shoulder to shoulder with our kids? What could that accomplish? But that was a huge shift.
Yeah.
So like I said, Nicole, you've had to roll with me all these years with all the thinking that we have done with our family, with our business, and just challenging norms, right? I think that you and I have really spent our life saying, wait, are we just going this direction because it's a current, or are we going this direction because it's the direction we want to go? Right. And so as we talk about staying on the field, just, what does that mean to you? And how has that impacted your thinking?
Well, I think that you're right. We have spent our whole lives, hopefully, challenging ourselves and thinking about, what our backgrounds were, what we brought into our marriage, how we thought things would be, and looking back over our lives, so much of that is different now than what we planned. Which, of course, that's how it goes. But I do think that the Lord has shown us over the years many areas where we have maybe, seen it a new way or changed our perspective. So staying on the field, though, for me, I don't think is as much of a departure as what in my thinking.
Retirement was really never on the table for you.
That's exactly it.
Right.
And so so staying on the field, I think, was always just a foregone conclusion. Of course, I'm going to be involved. I've seen my mother-in-law and father-in-law be very involved with our family. And so, Grammy's been a very supportive role in my life and in our family's life and in her other grandchildren. So I always had the vision and thought of being, involved.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what makes this shift different in my mind is, first of all, I see how excited you are in seeing our adult children move into that next season of life where they're now married and they have children. And so we are grandparents. And so you see the generations start to develop under you versus being a part of what's above you.
Right.
And so I think that changed your perspective, for sure.
Certainly
and
does.
so I'm excited because you're excited to see how your role could potentially change in business and in advising and being involved in adult children's lives. And I think for me, then seeing my children become parents and being involved in the raising and the foundations of the next generation for the purpose of strengthening those families and strengthening those people, I think that it maybe is more of a subtle shift because I don't know that my role will really change, but I think my perspective perhaps has.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's a good differentiation between role and perspective. Because you never thought you were going to be able to coast, right? So
and why is that?
Yeah, imagine that. So that's interesting. So your role this hasn't been as disruptive for your role, but it has changed your perspective. So
right, and I think to add, my role has been fulfilling. My role, I have enjoyed the work.
Right.
So staying on the field for me would feel like I'm missing something. Like wait a minute, I enjoy my what I have been able to participate in all these years.
So you don't want to check out of the game.
I'm not looking to check out of the game.
Right.
No.
Right. Right. That's interesting. So then, Nick, you're the next generation. So these are your parents talking about life in general. So from my perspective, there was a hope to get off the field, right? Essentially at some point, because you kind of grind through life and you're building and you're thinking. I think I've always said of Nicole, she's just a constant. She's a grinder, and I'm a surger. So I'm more of I'll surge even if it's for 40 years. So then
as long as there's
then there's this kind of other side where you get to actually relax for a minute.
Right. Hopefully.
And Nicole's just kind of grind all day every day. So for me, it is a shift in role. So it's a shift in perspective and a shift in role.
Right.
And so as we're having those conversations, and our perspectives and our personalities and so forth, but then you're also saying, well, I'm the next generation. What does this mean for me?
Right. Well, I'm a rookie checking into the game. So, as with all rookies, I'm excited, and I don't have a whole lot of predetermined expectations about roles.
Right.
Predetermined expectations about what my career will look like. I'm just excited to be a part of it.
Right.
And so that stands true now. I'm excited to be a part of the conversation. I'm excited to get an opportunity to see what you guys do and to kind of watch the path you take and learn from it.
Right.
So I'm excited to be a part of this conversation, even if it's just as a fly on the wall.
Right. But it's more than that, right?
It is.
Because what we're doing, and especially because you're involved in the business with me, my role in the business and staying engaged has impact for you. So even if we take it away from just you being a child in the family and the next generation, but even being involved in the business. So does that change anything for you?
Yeah, it's exciting. I get to have a relationship with you that I otherwise wouldn't have because we're working together.
Right.
The time and proximity is impossible to replicate without that environment.
Right. That's been a real advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope it will continue to be. But it's been to watch you guys kind of start to unpack what it would look like to stay on the field. It's inspiring because in the same sense that you have an opportunity to have ongoing relationship with me, I have an opportunity. I have a son. I have an opportunity to have an ongoing relationship with him.
Right.
It gets me thinking a little bit further up the mountain, so to speak, than I otherwise would be.
Sure.
And that includes, that's career-wise, relationally, it kind of all comes together.
Right.
It's all blended as one.
Right.
Looking further forward than I maybe otherwise would.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting that you say career-wise and relationally. I also tend to be a silo person. It's easy to segment out your life, your family life, your work life, and so forth. And I think that one of the biggest things that I'm thinking about the staying on the field and some of what we're coming to is it's a lot more integrated.
It is
than I would have anticipated.
Yes. In order for it to be the most impactful, it's integrated, right?
Yeah, right.
It's because it's discipleship. At the
Right.
root of it, it's building relationships with the intention to make each other stronger, right? In faith and in commitment and work ethic and all of the things that are important from a wee child all the way up to, finishing well in our next season of life.
Right.
And just saying, we are still responsible to invest in others, regardless of what stage we're in.
Right. Right. And finishing well, it's funny, you and I recognized the value of that when we first started to have children for whatever reason, just different circumstances in our lives. And we recognized, without having all the vernacular and all the conversations that we have now about staying on the field, we did recognize that the parent's role is until death, right? And if you don't finish well, then those last years can really impact. You're thinking your children are adults then, they've built their own life. What does it impact? It actually impacts a lot. So we did say at that point, it's incredibly important that we finish well, but we just didn't have the vernacular of staying on the field. And we didn't think of it as much in the way of going shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
Yes, more of a supportive role.
Yeah. Well, even just holding the values that we had held our whole life, like not diminishing the values and the character that we had taught our children when they were young, and then live a different way when we're older, right? That's incredibly harmful. And so, and we happen to just realize that, but now we're seeing even so much more than that.
Would you unpack a little bit just kind of the difference between what staying on the field looks like and in a little bit more detail?
Yeah.
And the difference between checking out of the game and staying on the field, and sort of what that means for my generation, and even just looking into the future, what that means for you and for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a great question. And there's so much there. And I think, again, because we have the opportunity to sit with hundreds of families and hear their hopes and dreams and their family situation, I also recognize that staying on the field looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point.
So I will give context to my situation, which is largely around money, right? We work in the field of money. So I think about things from a business and money perspective, but we have clients. I just want to suggest, we're recognizing other people are staying on the field in ministry, staying on the field in shepherding and discipling the next generation, being very involved in their family. So there's all these different ways. But for me, this shift from thinking of going to the sidelines and staying on the field was pretty significant because I had personal financial goals that I had determined, right?
Right.
So beyond providing for our family, which is kind of determined for you, right? What does it cost?
It's a predetermined thing.
Right. What does it cost to be prudent about financially providing for our family, and then for Nicole and I for the rest of our life? That's what we do, right? That's a calculation, and that's kind of easy math. And so, but beyond that, the goals were completely arbitrary.
Right.
Right. They were entirely because I've always thought about inheritance and legacy, and we work with people in that. I had set these financial, net worth goals that when I die, then I pass on to my children, and I did a great job, in my own mind. So it was really that arbitrary. There wasn't anything really meaningful to it that this amount of money is going to accomplish this special thing. Sure. It was just that as somebody who's business minded and financially minded, money is the metric. Right. It's not the goal, but it's the metric. And so I had metrics that were assigned to that. As I started to be challenged on this thinking, then I started to recognize just how arbitrary those goals were. And so I had to start rethinking that. So the sideline to me looked like taking care of mom and I for life responsibly, and then building a net worth throughout the rest of my life that then I could pass on to you guys, right?
Right.
And all the while I was doing that, then mom and I would cheer from you from the sideline.
Sure.
Go get them, right? You guys can do it.
Supportive.
Yeah. And we would, and there would certainly be times where maybe we would be able to help financially or whatever, just along the way, like every good parent does out there. Like we see that all the time in our clients. They're participating where they see a need or a way to help. And that was, for me, that's what that looked like.
Yeah.
And that would be me, though, being off the team, but being a cheerleader and potentially a booster, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Part of the booster club, right? Not too big of a part of the booster club, but a little bit of a part of the booster club.
Darn.
So that's what that looked like. And as mom and I really dug into this and started saying, well, what would a 10 talent life look like? What would be, I have a friend who says, use the best and highest use, right, of what you have. When I start to consider it for that, then I started to consider, well, what if I actually didn't just try to build our own net worth for these arbitrary reasons, but since I love business and my tool is money, right, that we use, what if I actually engage the next generation in that?
Right.
And so staying on the field for me meant staying engaged in business, right? And going shoulder to shoulder. And instead of saying, I've kind of secured mine and good luck to you. And instead I say, well, because I have these resources, then can we apply these to good use, right? And the next generation for the purpose of multiplication, right? And again, money being the metric to build wealth, right? So in our case, we're looking at, we would measure that by multi-generational wealth.
Right.
So, and then the question came, what if applying it that way built greater financial wealth than what I could ever build on my own, right? So this became my choice. To continue to build wealth that I would then arbitrarily give to my children, which they would arbitrarily use, right? And we've seen generally is not for multiplication. It's good for consumption. Sometimes it's for destruction.
Yeah.
So instead of doing it that way, that we could apply it while we're living. And as we're not passing wealth. Instead of giving fish, we taught to fish. So you're already operating the companies.
Right.
And the wealth generating tools, let's say, that might be in place.
Right.
How much more meaningful would that be?
Yeah.
So staying on the field for me really meant saying which of those two ideas am I more excited about? Yeah. Okay. I was kind of excited about coasting. So that sounded okay. But the other opportunity to go shoulder to shoulder with a family, to walk through some things together, and to give you guys a chance to learn to fish and be just so much better fishermen than I was, what really became super compelling.
What can be done to prevent the wealth being a curse? And what can be done to, as if wealth is the means, then I don't know, could that not be a hindrance in some way?
Right. Well, Nicole and I talk about this a lot, and we consider that because we see that in families. It's crazy because more money is what it seems like the whole culture is pursuing, right? Yeah. And again, that's our work. And so we help people pursue that. It's super important. But more money isn't really the solution.
Yeah.
Right. More money, it's just one of the levers. We talk about levers. It's a lever that you can pull on. So it's a tool. It's a tool that you can utilize for other things. And I think where we've seen wealth become a curse in families is when with affluence, entitlement gets attached to it. So that's when it becomes a curse. So when people are saying, I'm due an inheritance, right? I deserve this or what have you, that becomes problematic. Or not even I'm due an inheritance, but I'm even due support right now while they're living. Like this is our wealth.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's funny. I can't remember who it was who had made the comment that, my kids will say we're rich, and they said, no, I'm rich.
Right.
You're not rich. I'm rich. Right. So but it's easy for people to start to make it a weird thing.
Yeah.
And I think when families make it a weird thing, then it's a short road from there to entitlement. And once you get to entitlement, wealth is a curse.
Yeah.
It just is. It's a demotivator. It's a relationship breaker.
Yeah.
It just becomes really, really ugly. So this thing that we're all pursuing, more money, actually becomes a curse in your life. And who's pursuing a curse on purpose?
Exactly.
Right?
Absolutely.
Nobody. So it's that, I think what we're looking at is saying how to counter that. We're saying, well, if money isn't the goal or isn't the blessing in and of itself, then what is?
Right.
And I think what we're considering is that it's the character, it's the faith, it's the values.
Yeah.
That actually are what we're trying to push multi-generationally.
Absolutely.
And we're just using wealth as a measurable metric. And that's really just based upon the fact that we've seen that a family that can grow wealth, not just maintain it, not just manage it, but that can grow wealth from generation to generation, is indicative of a family that has actually been able to make the values the most important thing.
That's a really smart observation.
Yeah, that's true. Discipleship is key.
Yeah.
Right. That's part of it. It's using the, in this case, business.
Right.
Yeah.
And using that as the tool, but really it's bringing people to the table for a common endeavor,
right.
And that's what's so beautiful about it.
Well, you mentioned working together. So the reason we have so much time together is because we work together.
Correct.
And so the reason we have time to learn from each other is because we work together.
Right.
And Nicole, you've said, what do I have to contribute to this conversation about money? Because you just, that's my lane in the family. You have 1,000 things that you carry for our family, and this is one that I carry. And so you're aware of it. You know what's going on, but it's just not your primary lane. And I think as we've looked at all of the development in our family, we have learned that you can't build something that will stand. So again, when we're talking about multi-generationally, you can't build something that will stand on a weak foundation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think as we have said, how does this all connect? Like you and I are obviously on the same team. We're always pulling in the same direction. That, we're just committed to doing that. And so when we look at this, I think sometimes you're like, well, you're the one who's advising the children. You're the one, the adult children, you're the one who's kind of leading in these charges. But when the kids are, what I have to work with is from the foundation that you built, right? So it's that work that you have done that have prepared them. So as a parent, it's easy to say, wow, look at this weight on our child.
Yeah.
And I'll use adult children because it's easier for people to relate to that. It's with all of our children, but look at the weight on our child, look at what they're struggling through, or what if we were to take that weight, or, let's help them. And we've come to recognize that taking weight off is absolutely appropriate at times. But if we're actually weakening them, then we're actually creating a curse for them.
Yeah.
Our objective for them is to be stronger and to carry more.
Well, if you're on a team, you work out in a weight room together in any actual sport.
Right.
And you hope everybody gets stronger.
Right.
And sometimes that requires trying something you're not sure you're going to be able to lift.
Yeah. Being at risk of getting crushed. Yeah. And the whole
that
trick.
makes the team better. If you can lift it, it makes the team better.
Exactly. And if you're always saying, I'm only going to lift what I definitely know I can lift, then it limits your strength.
It absolutely does.
So we've had those conversations. So even in when we've looked at those and we've said, what can they do? We're learning that. So anyways, when we're looking at these things, and I'm looking at it from a growth perspective and a multi-generational perspective, and you're saying your role isn't changing that much. It's not necessarily changing that much, but what we're seeing is now an opportunity with the next generation, right?
Yeah.
With the grandkids.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are you going to do with the grandkids?
Absolutely. Oh, dear.
No, well, you're going to do.
No, the same sort of thing. Like we're going to continue. I'm interested in saying, okay, well, what does that look like for Rachel, and Emily and the girls and, those that are supporting husbands and managing their homes, and how can I, help them and spot them, support them, encourage them. The Bible talks about the older women teaching the younger women. And so again, when it doesn't all have to be family business. It doesn't all have to be common ministry. But when you have those opportunities, you're automatically in proximity to be able to say, how do we learn from each other? How do we support one another? And so, my role may not look much different than it did the first round of raising children, because maybe there will be a lot of engaging in, babies and toddlers and, little children, and teaching them the basics of the faith and the basics of good character and work ethic. And all of that is incredibly important.
Yeah, but it's actually parallel, because and I hadn't occurred to me until we're having this conversation, but it's not just you are engaging in children. You now have daughters and daughter-in-laws to disciple, right? Who are actually raising the children, right?
Yes.
So yes, you're supporting that, and you're making them stronger and so forth. So I hadn't considered how parallel it is. So you're saying it's the same because it feels like the same.
Yeah.
It's the same type of things in the sense of building young children, but you're building it through that next generation, just like the business that we build in the next 20 to 30 years will be through the next generation. I'm still building business and involved in that. But it's if I'm doing it myself, like if you were doing it without consideration for the strengthening of the mothers, you'd be doing a disservice.
100%. So true.
Absolutely.
No, so true.
So your role is similar, but it's different.
Yeah.
So you play a different position on the field.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's broadening, right? Because all of a sudden there's multiple households to support and encourage and, assist.
Yeah.
So it's more than just our household. It's hopefully some experience and some knowledge and still some ability to be able to bring to the table to help, help my daughters and daughters-in-law in their marriages and families and homes.
Yeah. Right.
So as a wife, looking now towards this transition of dad kind of potentially staying on the field much longer than he originally intended to pursue this, looking as a wife towards him, what do you see as opportunity for him? What do you see as concern? Really from your perspective, looking into him, how is this all coming across to you?
I'm honestly excited about it for him. Like I think that when you entered the business, I think that's when the sparks maybe first flew. I don't know. It doesn't seem as though there was much talk about an inclusion of the family in your business for a long time. And I'm not sure exactly, I guess you could probably clarify maybe why that was, but there came a point in time where it was a consideration. Maybe, Nick, it was I'm not sure. I guess I'll kick it to you for a second.
I think, coming from a farming background, I had seen some people, some sons, for example, stay in the family business because it was an expectation, and then we're unhappy there, right? They were unhappy, the dads were unhappy. So and our field is interesting because it's all confidential. So I didn't include any of my family into the business when they were young. We're on a farm.
Sure.
You can go shoulder to shoulder at a young age. So I had always kind of left it to be. I never talked to them about joining the business. I had visions of it and thought, with as many children as we have, there's a high probability that somebody will, right? But I hadn't really pushed it or even created the opportunity. So when I said, hey, if I know we haven't talked about this, but if you ever have interest, then I'd be happy to have the conversation. He said, no, I definitely have interest.
Yeah.
And then it's the first time that it changed from theory to practical application.
Yeah.
And with that, then it shifted again. When we're talking about the sidelines to the not sidelines, in my industry, the most common thing is that people at my stage start to coast. That's just what they do. They say, I'm going to coast out
maintain
my last 10 years, and it's called a lifestyle business. And then they exit, right? And so that was the natural current that our industry takes and that I would have taken. Well, adding a next generation to our firm in a manner in which it wasn't, yes, you can come and build your own book. That wasn't our intention. Our intention was, okay, well then let's both go at it together. And it was a shift of me, to me saying, I'm not going to coast. We're going to build a bigger, and not just for bigger, but a more sustainable, multi-generational business. Like before that, then it was only one generation. So we weren't building a multi-generational business, but now we are our family serving your family for generations. Like we are intentionally not looking for an exit. Like we are intentionally saying, no, we're going to build something that we intend to be for. So I think that's where that came from.
And I think that has been a spark, that is kind of
exciting.
Come back in. Like I think you do enjoy business. You do enjoy the, assessing the risk and being willing to take risk. I mean, that's always been something that doesn't bother you. I'm a little more of the safe, let's not rock the boat. So we're a good match that way. But I think that it has been inspiring to see you get excited about what it could mean. And I also think that it has challenged you and required you to maybe, dust off some of the skills and tasks that you haven't done in a while, maybe haven't needed to do to be able to say, okay, well, it's time to get back in the game here.
Right. I was going to hang up my cleats, and now I guess I need to get a new pair, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it is.
So I think it has been, it's a bit of a midlife crisis, I say to some people, for both of us, but I think in some of the best ways, because I think we've just recognized that there's just so much more opportunity. There's so much more to do.
I was going to say, because I would push back on the midlife crisis because I haven't felt the crisis portion at all. So it's a midlife. I know, but that's the term we use in culture. But it was a midlife opportunity.
Yeah, maybe so.
And maybe that's something to dig into that we've never dug into. Is that maybe the reason some people are hitting this midlife crisis is because they're not looking at the opportunity, or they're not willing to get back on the field or stay on the field. So I hadn't really considered that.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So I think that the opportunity to you said it's kind of ignited me a little bit, and what I realized is builders are builders.
Yeah.
They just are.
Yep.
And so you don't stop being a builder because you hit a certain age or you hit a certain net worth.
Yeah.
That doesn't go away.
No.
And so we see people, whether they're clients or other people in the community, who are builders, who get to this point in their life in which they've essentially been, the cultural current is taking them there, and they're kind of going to the sideline because they think they ought to.
Well, they've been all-stars for years.
Yeah.
The all-stars
but they're
on the
unhappy
team.
with it, right? They go to the sideline and they say,
wait a minute.
Why is this meaningful? I don't like this.
All-stars want to keep playing all-star ball.
Right.
They want to keep going.
So that's a big part of what we're doing in the business is we're saying, no, hey, some people are going to go and do something entirely different, right? If they're whatever their 10 talent life is going to be might not be business building or what
Right.
have you. But for people who are wired that way and that is their talent, to try to say now you ought to go do ministry, they're like, I don't get it, right? Or maybe now you ought to go do this. They're a little bit lost. And I wouldn't say, I think building business is as noble as anything. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think that now, I think some people are like, well, how much money do you need to somebody who's super successful? But again, they're not doing it for more money. Money's a metric. Money's a measurement. So yes, they are measuring that, but it doesn't mean that people who continue to build are just greedy.
No.
And
Correct.
so I think the kind
Any
of
more than the one who had 5 and turned it into 10 was greedier than the one who had 2 and turned it into 4.
right. It's his talent.
Exactly. It's his talent. He was given more to start. He made more.
Yeah.
And even it's what it was.
Yeah.
It's what God gave.
Yeah. So I think that's how I would say I responded to that, is that I want to build, right? And now I have an opportunity. Now I don't want to build alone, right?
Yes,
And my risk
that's
profile is
true.
different, or my
Yep.
risk tolerance is different than it was. When you're 20, you have nothing to lose, right?
Right.
Sure, we'll risk it all, right?
Sure.
It's what my
Right.
14-year-old car with the 180,000 miles is all I have to lose. So
Not very high stakes.
So it's a little bit different as you go further. So I think what is fun is the opportunity to build with the next generation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm still a builder. I just don't want to push the ball up the hill alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so there's this saying that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And what I'm really trying to shift to is learning how to go far, because I have not gone together well, right? I think in our life, because our family situation is different, we've had people go with us. So I'm not saying we've been alone by any means.
Sure.
But as far as with shoulder to shoulder with a common purpose, going together and allowing yourself to even be slowed down
Yes.
Because of that.
because of that, but seeing that the opportunity is so much greater by going together. I'm just now coming to that phase where I can value that, and I'm getting excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for you, then that means, okay, now I want to go together. Well, do you want to go together, right?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go alone? Like, am I going to
Right.
slow you down? There's a something for that other generation to consider.
Yeah.
Do we want to go together?
Well, that's a good question. The answer is yes, but it's not always immediately intuitive. So young people are famous for risk taking, and their risk appetite is much higher. And,
Right.
and that can be a benefit. It can also be a curse. I think that there's an opportunity in a partnership between the older generation and the younger generation, and the risk appetite of the younger generation having a governor on it to what's reasonable.
Right.
The older generation having maybe a little bit of an engine tune-up
push.
to push towards opportunities that are there, but maybe, if you're 10 years from, say, hanging up your cleats, so to
Right.
speak, you're not going to pursue a 15-year opportunity.
Exactly.
But a 20-year-old sure would.
Right.
Because that's a huge deal.
Right.
And it lengthens even my time horizon, because I'm
Right.
looking at this and I'm seeing you go together with me, and I have a son.
Right.
And so
right.
I'm not even thinking on 40-year timeframes.
Right.
I'm thinking on hundreds of years over periods of time, just
Right.
because then my son, 100 years for me, and then for my son, and he'll think 100 years, hopefully, for him and for his son.
Right.
And that cycle will hopefully continue. It's in starting something like that
Right.
is exciting. I don't know if we'll succeed, but I sure hope we do.
Yeah, it just gives an opportunity. I think the way that I would express it is that when you're young and or I'll talk about myself. I won't put this on everybody else. When I was young and getting going, the objective, was, let's say, getting rich. And
Yeah.
not that I was trying to get rich, but I was in a hurry,
Yep.
right? So the objective was do it and do it fast. And then again, you've succeeded. So you're at a summit. Now you have choices. Maybe that's
Yeah.
why I was in a hurry. I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure. But that was my perspective. Now, over time, that perspective has changed. One, my business is not a sprint. My business is a marathon.
Yeah.
So it was, if I tried to do it fast, I would have built a bad business,
Mhm.
right? And I recognized that early. It wouldn't have been good for clients, and it wouldn't have been good for us. So that created a shift where I had to start thinking differently. But now when I look at it, I don't, now I even though I won't be around for 100 years, I'm looking at it with a 100-year mindset, right?
Mhm.
So I'm saying, okay, I can envision your career, right?
Mhm.
Because you're close enough. I can see a little bit of, your children's career, or other grandchildren's career, but I can't even
Right.
see all of that.
Right,
But I
no,
can
exactly.
say, what do I do now that isn't just about me getting something quick for myself that I'm just going to give to you guys anyways, right? Well,
Right.
what's the benefit of that?
Right.
If instead that I can build something. So my vision has definitely lengthened because of that.
Yeah.
So it's funny. There's a book by David Green, who's the founder of Hobby Lobby.
Yep.
And it's called The Legacy Life. And he defines legacy in there, because we think about legacy and inheritance and all those, again, working in money. We're always talking to clients about these things. He gives a definition for legacy, and he says the cultural or the traditional definition of legacy is what you leave behind. And he suggested that a better definition for legacy might be what you put in motion.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about how when I was 20, I thought about getting rich quick, or whatever you want to call that, versus now I think about building wealth. Like, it's a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're looking at getting rich quick, it's easy to do short-term wins that have long-term consequences that you're kind of ignoring, right? Where when you're looking at building wealth, then you're much more willing to take longer to get there because you're not in a hurry. So I think that marriage or I'm hopeful, I should say, that the marriage of the two generations and eventually three generations allows that the energy of the younger generation, like you're saying, pushes the tendency to go all defensive to the older generation, right? And it creates this great balance. So it's this I think the multi-generational approach benefits everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. In all areas of life.
So it's not just like our generation, being charitable to your generation, right?
Yeah.
That's not it. It's just, I think as we're digging through this, it seems to me that it will benefit our generation, hopefully benefit your generation and beyond. And the real thing, as Nicole, you used the word, I think earlier, discipleship, which is as you walk along the road, show them how to do things.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to faith and values and character, which is what we're most interested in passing on, right?
Absolutely.
But that if we do that moderately well with your generation, then hopefully your generation will observe that, improve it, do it a little better for the next generation. They'll observe it and improve it. And that's where the multi-generational wealth as a measurement of the success of that, I think will be interesting, right?
Yeah.
It would be, we won't be here, but it'd be very interesting to say in 100 years, did what we're trying to put in motion today matter?
Right.
And how did it matter? And again, it's not to be measured in billions of dollars, but to be measured in, do we have this healthy family that's in relationship, living by faith, and building each other up, right? And is there money that goes along with that, right? So it from my perspective, that's what's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I think really as we consider our listeners and just where they might be in this, I think that what I would encourage our listeners to do is to say, is this all new thinking for you? Have you considered this? And if you were to consider that definition of legacy, then what is it that you would want to put into motion, right? What's worthwhile? What little thing can you do today that doesn't have to create an outcome in a year or 2 years or even 10 years, but that if you put it into motion could actually be meaningful? And if you can define something like that, then what does that mean as far as staying on the field? Or maybe in your case, it's getting back on the field. If you're already 10 or 15 years into retirement, I can tell you from talking to the generations behind you, you are still super impactful. So you may not even recognize that, but if that's the case and you want to put something in motion, how could you get back on the field in any way at all that you could go shoulder to shoulder with your family? And would the risk and the cost of doing that be worth it? So that's what I'd encourage you to do. I'd thank you for listening today. We're super excited to continue this conversation about the 10-talent life. Today, we're talking about staying on the field is just the first step, and looking forward to continuing this journey with you.